So what's up, YouTube? This is Doug Jenkins, back with a more instructional kind of video of how a digital studio works. We have two variations in audio. We have the analog world and we also have the digital world. Now this, and I don't know of any studio today that you know, there may be a studio out there, so I shouldn't say that, but the analog world has usually been represented by more lifelike, more image, more detail. Ooh, you can get saturation, harmonics, everything like that. So in the digital world, the main goal is to keep the integrity of that captured signal. We want to make sure from one piece, one device to the next, we want pieces to communicate with one another, whether that's through the digital formats that I'm going to explain in the video. And then we're going to talk about workflow and how this can help your workflow in your studio. Whether you're doing what I'm doing today or not, you can incorporate that to what you do. There's a lot of different and cool things about digital that we've grown to love. The simplicity of editing. I mean, it's unbelievable. The ability to just cut and paste stuff. Now that can be detrimental too, by the way. You can get very picky and actually overwork a production. I've seen that happen in the later rounds, especially with newer guys, and that's not defeating, or I'm not trying to be depressing. I'm just saying, myself included, I mean, I get out of recording school and I think I have to EQ every last thing and every little nuance of everything. And then you get a little older and you get a little understanding. I don't care if you're 5 or you're 50. The fact is, you start to go, maybe I don't need to touch that much. And then you start to realize that certain pieces of hardware from great companies allow you to get to where you want to go quicker. And I think that that's the best workflow. So today I want to talk about the digital side of that. There's a lot of digital communication going on in this studio that is behind the scenes. You know, it's behind the curtain. Nobody ever gets to see it. And I'm not going to pull all my equipment out of the rack and try to do this awesome thing. I don't do consumer videos. My videos are just real. Okay, this is my studio. This is this. I'm not taking on, you know, projects and then just doing a review on this unless a company wants to send me something. I would definitely do that. And I don't take bias towards companies. I promote what I use, and I will never represent a company just to represent them. This is what we do, okay? This is what I use. These are pieces that I've come to love and I love the sound of. So you know, hats off to them. So the thing is this. We have two interfaces on screen, and I want to give you a little rundown of the interfaces and how they operate. But also, in doing that, it's not just about the interface. This is about the reason you have these connections on the back of your interface, if you have an interface. Most interfaces are going to have some digital signal, okay? I don't know why I'm holding this, but I am. The digital signal that I've noticed that has become popular among most studios is you have interfacing capability with these digital signals. So SPDIF, for example, can carry 2 channels of audio and clock signal to another device. Why do you want to do that digital? Like, why don't I just plug in my 2 XLR cables and send it to the other device if I wanted to do that? That's stupid. The reason for doing that is I'm going to show you in this video. If you have 2 multiple interfaces, and in this case I have one pristine 2-channel converter that I want to be the main player in the whole entire picture, I can run, which I have another interface, which is the Orion Studio, which was pretty much an interface that was built strictly for, you know, a studio like this. I don't track much, okay? So I don't need many inputs or outputs. I need outputs for my summing, which the Orion gave me. I have 16 outputs of summing. I can mix in the box, and then I can use this on my 2-track or my print, and it's worked well. Now I can also separate that out and start to use it on individual tracks, but I'll get into that in a later video. But what we want to do is, today's session is interesting. I had a gentleman send me an instrumental, and the instrumental's on the internet, okay? Now, I don't know how long you've been doing engineering, but sometimes that can be a bummer. Okay, you're like, well, how am I going to get this off the internet? there's services where they're pretty fraudulent, and you could get a malicious virus on your system, and you're like, dude, I'm not going to do that for the minimal dollars that's coming in today. So you're like, well, and it doesn't matter about the money, but it does in a sense. You don't want to have your whole system crash over an instrumental. So in the case, I have two interfaces. I have the Pure 2, which, for the record, the Pure 2 is a USB interface. That's a debate in itself. Does that transfer audio better than this or that or this or that? No, guys, okay? Like whatever's going to work for you works for you. I have noticed that when I'm tracking the USB on my Mac Pro Tower, I don't like tracking with it when I have an HD setup, okay? The HD setup is known to be very stable, very low latency. It has all the makeup of adding DSP power if you get a creative idea in the session. A lot of times I'll hear what he's doing in the microphone booth, and I'll say, maybe he needs some reverb to help him out, or maybe he needs a little high end. In the HD world, I can do that with a plugin and not have to worry about the repercussion of putting a plugin on, and then he has like 19 vocal stacks, and I'm like, dude, if he starts getting latency, I'm going to lose it. HD's known for that, and the reason that the bigger studios run HD because they're running big multi-track sessions. Now, if you're at your house, do you need HD? That's up to you, okay? Do you feel like your workflow gets hindered by stopping and starting, stopping and starting? There are benefits to the audio quality in HD. The card that goes inside your computer, when it links DigiLink to an interface, if you look at the specs on most interfaces, look at it when it's connected HD compared to USB. There may be some changes in the dynamic range, so pay attention to that. The other thing is multiple interfaces in the HD world usually work well together. In this case, I think I could add up to 4 HD interfaces. If you've looked at a studio and seen like 4 interfaces stacked on top of each other, you really do need an HD setup to do that. Now, if you're a smaller setup and you're just using this and you want to utilize SPDIF, you bought a old school converter and you're starting to say, dude, my sound quality, I don't know, I would like to experiment with something else. To you guys trying to save money out there, there are a lot of older interfaces from great companies like Apogee, Antelope, Lynx, I would say those that I really look at on the internet and go, ooh, man, I saw that for a great deal. You could incorporate an interface into your setup. Like, you might see an HD interface for sale, and you're like, well, I don't have an HD system. This is sort of a bummer. You actually may be able to use it if you listen to what we're about to say in this video. You can use a HD interface in standalone mode, but double check the manual. It might say standalone mode. Example, Apogee Symphony. Prime one. We love it, we lived with it, and we love it. The Apogee Symphony can run in standalone mode, which is really cool. What is standalone mode on an Apogee? It's when you can run it from one converter to the next, adding 8 more channels of audio. Now let's talk about the digital connections. In that case, you would use a fiber optic cable. The fiber optic cable looks like the thing on the back of your television that has that red light, and it's that fiber optic cable looking deal with the red infrared looking light. For you newbies, that's why I'm saying that. I'm not trying to patronize people, just bear with me. So the fiber optic out can go to the fiber optic in of something, and then that output is feeding 8 channels of audio to the input. Now, how do you get that to work with a converter? You would have to go back and forth between that converter. So if you have your main interface, let's say you have a Digi 002 or a Digi 003. That's how I started in audio, by the way. And I added an Apogee converter. At the time, it was a really sought-after one, which was an 88,000 special edition, but I didn't have Pro Tools HD. I didn't have the money for this, the money for that, or the money for this. I was like, I just want better converters. So I ran out of the 002 into the Apogee 88,000, and then out of the 88,000 back into the 002. And I think I started a craze on YouTube and all over the internet. And everybody was looking for the 88,000. And I'm not taking, trust me, dude, I'm being very cautious when I say that. That was not a prideful statement. I'm saying all of a sudden I was trying to find an ADAT card. It became really popular, and I saw them reading about it in the forums. But the same thing applies to the Rosettas. The same thing applies to Lucid converters. There's a lot of Lucid converters that have 8 in, 8 out. the antelope side of things, they usually are an all in-house thing. You don't have to worry about that stuff. But that is how you can incorporate that with your existing setup. So now when you open up your Pro Tools session, that Pro Tools session should see those 8 channels of ADAT in and out. So now you can assign those for what you want. You can have the outputs of your speakers going to a controller, and then now you have a better DA to listen to your mixes. You may find out that you want to use those 8 channels strictly for your hardware. So you're like, I don't have a patch bay at the time. I don't know what I want to do yet. I don't really need a patch bay. I have 8 compressors, or I have 8 EQs, or I have 2 reverb units, and I have 1 compressor here, and I have another Pultec here. Companies like Warm Audio make that possible. You can have 8 76s. Ooh, that's a good thing to think about. So now you have 8 channels of conversion going to those 8 76s. So now what you have to understand is this. A lot of people get confused here. When it's going 8 in and out, ADAT, what that's telling your Pro Tools session is now those digital outputs are routed to the analog in and out. So what that means is it goes in and out of the, I'm trying to explain this without getting you confused, but now just think of it this way. If I go out of my interface, like my Digi 002, and I feed that ADAT into my, let's say it's a Rosetta 800, and then out of my Rosetta 800 back into my 002, those are communicating together. So that's telling Pro Tools from the 002 that, hey, there's 8 more channels of analog audio coming back and forth, but it's feeding it back and forth through those fiber optic cables. On the Rosetta, there's analog in and analog out. Now, if you look at the front of that Rosetta, it's going to say, well, ADAT 1 through 8 equals analog 1 through 8. If you look at a Lynx, it's the same thing. ADAT 1 through 8 equals analog 1 through 8. So now when we pull this up in our Pro Tools session, those 8 outputs from that Rosetta are now usable. Do you see where I'm going with that? So now you can have 8 more channels of audio. Now there's another one. There's a format called SPDIF. Okay, SPDIF is Sony Philips Digital Interfacing Format, I believe. I'm pretty sure on that. If I'm not, somebody can correct me. But the SPDIF cable looks like an RCA cable. It looks like an old school DVD player. I mean, it looks like an RCA cable that you hook up to your television, but it, as I spit on the ground there, but it obviously is not a RCA cable. An RCA cable carries analog information. A SPDIF cable carries digital signal. Now, to stop in this video and explain what digital signal is, why don't you just send it analog? Like, what's the purpose behind that? A digital signal is ensuring the highest quality between the 2 devices. Example, old school 002, really rough sounding quality, but has a lot of functionality. You like the controller, you like your controller monitor, you like all the all-in-one solution, but the converter, you sort of outgrew it. The converter's just not doing it anymore. It's muffled, and you heard this converter and it sounds 5 billion times better. So with that being said, the SPDIF information can go like this. You can go SPDIF out, because the SPDIF information carries a clock signal. There has to be a master clock in a digital studio. Okay, the master clock's telling all the other digital devices in that studio that this guy is the one we want to listen to. That's it. That's all it is. It's like, this one's better at it. He's got it down. He knows what he's doing. This one is telling this thing to do, and then it actually inherits its clock signal. That's the cool part about digital. Okay, that's one of the cool benefits. So once you have a master clock, which Antelope makes some fantastic ones, it does increase the sound quality. It does increase the stability, the image, the actual audio that you're hearing. So in the case of this, we have this old school 002, and we have this Rosetta. So we want to tell, if you want to do this right, you want to tell the Rosetta to be your master clock. You send a SPDIF cable to the SPDIF in of the 002. In Pro Tools, you go to Hardware, you go to Setup, and then you look at your interface, and it says Clock. Make it external. Now, if it's working right, this Rosetta is telling this device that I'm taking over. It's pretty much what it's doing. The other cool thing is this. If you go SPDIF in and out of this, you can carry 2 channels of audio. There's a lot of 2-channel converters that use SPDIF because it's a 2-channel digital format. So the SPDIF out and the SPDIF in, going back and forth between the 002 and the Rosetta, allows you to add 2 really great channels of conversion. Really cool. Now if you search eBay and Reverb and stuff like that, you might find yourself a really awesome converter from Benchmark or Prism or MyTech or Rosetta or Antelope. You might find something for a deal. You never know. Or if you're not even looking for a deal, you're just looking for a great converter. This is a great way to do it and not get rid of what you already have. So here's what we're doing today. I know that was a little long-winded and I apologize, but I wanted to get it to you. So our studio runs with 2 interfaces. We have a Orion Studio HD. Their new interfaces are unbelievable once you get to know them. They have super flexibility, pristine DA. I love the punchiness and the definition of it. Each converter has its own sound. So if you want to get professional in this business, seriously, pay attention. Do shootouts. Try to figure out which converter sounds good with you. Some people like Prism converters. Some people like Antelope converters. It's not one's better than the next, but it is one's better than the next for you. I promise you. Some people still prefer this or still prefer that. So don't get biased, and I'm going to try not to get biased in my videos. I know I probably have in the past, but that's something that, you know, we live and we learn. Let's just focus on what you're trying to achieve. It's the same thing with mastering gear. I cannot tell you, hey, this piece is better than this piece, or this piece is better than that piece, and then a song comes in and another piece is better than that piece. It's like, just do your job and keep doing it, you know? So with the Antelope clock as my main master clock, the Pure 2 and the Orion Studio HD are communicating with one another via SPDIF. Okay, so this is the best way to simplify this for you. SPDIF in and out of the Orion is going to the SPDIF in and out of the Pure 2. The reason I have to do that is because we are running the Pro Tools session as an HD session. Okay, so my main playback in my Pro Tools session is HD. The Orion Studio is the HD version, and it has a DigiLink cable that is linking to the back of the MacBook. I meant the Mac Pro, not the MacBook. And it is feeding the HD card within the computer. We're tracking. I want stability. I want no latency. I just want to roll. But here's the kicker. I really want to use the AD of the Pure 2 because we're only recording a vocal. I'm not recording a bunch of inputs, which we would need in the Orion. So I want to use the Pure 2, but the Pure 2 is a USB interface. So I'm sort of like, well, that's a bummer. Well, that's why Antelope put the SPDIF stuff on the back. So you can actually, once you understand this, you can think a little bit different about your workflow. So with that being said, if you look at the screen here, let me zoom in on the screen here in a second. I don't have to show routing exactly, but this allows me, let me zoom in a little bit here. But with these 2 interfaces and the control panels that Antelope provides, I can tell the system pretty much anything I want it to do from this screen. So in this case, this is what I'm doing. I'm taking the Orion and telling the Orion SPDIF in to feed 9 and 10, which is B1 and 2 on in my Pro Tools session. And I'm also telling the SPDIF out that's here to be my playback. Now, what does that mean? Okay, well, I'm using, since I've hooked it up SPDIF in and out, I want the Pure 2 to be my main playback. It has a control monitor. This is easy when I go to do a mastering job. I don't have to like reprocess, repatch my cables, redo this. I'm literally using it as my monitor controller. I'm using it as my pristine DA and AD converter. So in this case, all I'm doing is feeding it into our HD setup through 2 SPDIF cables. So with that, now I can tell this. This is what's the coolest part about it. So I have this session set up with the microphone in the other room, and I also have it set up to capture from a source. So we have an instrumental that the gentleman wants to try out. You know, I highly advise pay all your producers. In this case, we're waiting to see if he wants to use this song, and then we'll make the decision on if we're going to purchase it from the producer. So what we're going to do here is with the actual control panel for the Pure 2, I can say, okay, I want to capture USB 1 and 2. Well, check this out. USB 1 and 2 is my Pure 2. Okay, now that is my global setting for my Mac Pro. That is my interface. That's what's cool about having multiple interfaces with digital connections. You can utilize two interfaces at the same time. Now, I mean, God forbid something changes, but it's been successful for me. I don't believe you could use the Pure 2 here and then use the Pure 2 here over the same interface format. Now, I could be wrong. I think I've done it actually, but you're going to run into clocking issues and all kinds of stuff. You open up a video that goes to 48 and all of a sudden this is screwed up. So what I'm getting at is this. With the two interfaces from Antelope, I can use the Pure 2 to strictly feed this instrumental into Pro Tools just so we can see if we want to use it. And this is how this works. It has to be in USB 1 and 2. And so when I hit play on the instrumental, which we AKA also labeled Kevin Durant, which is crushing the Cavs right now. I'm from the great city of I'm about 10 minutes from Akron. So when I push play here, this should come in. And there it is. So it shows up on the screen. That's great and all. We can totally take that instrumental and use it until we know what we want to do with it. And then we'll have to give him some shout outs in the video. But here we go. So here's the deal. So let me shut this down. So now we've utilized the Pure 2's USB interfacing with a HD Pro Tools rig. Now if you don't have HD, don't worry about it. If you have two interfaces, you could actually use the Orion in USB mode for playback and the Pure 2 for playback. Or with the Orion, you could use, I believe I've done this, you can use the USB mode, run USB playback, and I think I did that on the Orion video, but then you could just capture that to the HD record. So if you have the Orion Studio HD and you have an HD compatible system, you can use both at the same time. That's really powerful, by the way. So now, once we're done, we have this, all that stuff. I hope you guys understand that. I know that's a little confusing, so if you weren't following, I'll try to clarify it at the end. But now we can go in and we can say, okay, I want to go back to the Pure 2. Now we have this recorded. So I did that earlier. Now I can go to the AD. So my digital outsource, aka the SPDIF, is sending my analog to digital. So what's hooked up to that? Now check this out. It's really, really simplistic once you guys get it, I promise you. But it is a little confusing, I'm not going to lie. I mean, it's confusing when you first get into this stuff. You're like, what the heck is he talking about? So in my patch bay, I have this Need 1073, which is unbelievable. And that's feeding the Moog, the Moog's feeding the Crane Song's feeding the Pure 2's analog to digital converter. So that's the AD side. So I got to tell the Pure 2, well, I want to now capture the microphone signal. So that's what I'm doing in this control panel. I'm saying the digital outsource now is going to be the AD. See, what I'm doing here is I'm using the Pure 2's high quality converter, like pristine quality converter, and I'm capturing the instrumental, and then I'm running that SPDIF in to the Orion, and then the Orion is telling Pro Tools, hey, that's input 1 and 2, B1 and 2 in this case, and then I can capture it. So that's what's really neat. But the thing is they all have to be clocked the same way. They all have to be on that clock. Now don't let that get discouraging, okay? Once you understand that, and once you do it a few times, once you bump your head a few times, you'll get it. So here's another format, okay? The ADAT of the Pure 2 is feeding this really sweet monitoring setup in the other room. So as I'm tracking, I unfortunately cannot use it, and there's actually no reason to use it. But if we go over here, and you look at these mammoth monitors, this is really like my layback, chill, let's really hear what the song sounds like in a bigger setting. Really great club reference, really great hi-fi reference. But we have a Antelope Zodiac that we purchased secondhand what a great piece of equipment. I did have the black version, but I realized that I wasn't using it for that, so I sold that off. The black version has some more inputs and outputs, but this is pretty much strictly a DA with a high quality power supply. Power supplies, we can get into that in another video, but this is running fiber optic. Okay, so there's two ADAT cables going to this from the back of the Pure 2 in the other room. So the Pure 2 out, I'm sorry, it's just one ADAT out, I apologize, of the Pure 2, and that's going into the Antelope Zodiac DA. If you look here, it says optical 1. Now, when we click that over to ADAT in that other room and we want to mix this track that he does, then I can actually reference it in here. The other cool thing is if you look here and I power on the screen, I've set it up where we have a secondary monitor that actually covers the same thing. So now I can go into this other room and say, you know what, I want to mix today, and here I want to listen to it in a bigger environment, bigger setup, and it gives you a secondary or a third monitoring solution. So that's how you use digital. It's really cool, and you can see my microphone signal coming in because here's the mic. It's actually a warm U87. Thing's pretty sweet. So yeah, we got his headphones set up and we're ready to roll, dude. And here's a Behringer that I got to learn. Hopefully I can do some videos on that shortly, but he should be here any minute. And I'm going to try to sum it up real quick with the last digital format. It's a cool place to be, man. We really love mixing, and we've been getting some serious results out of here, and I'm very thankful that I keep, continuing to do it and just getting better at what I do. So the last part of this is there is another digital connection that's usually in the more professional world, so that's not, I don't really, and when I say that, I don't mean that discouraging. I use SPDIF and I use ADAT. I mean that, but a lot of people, they tend to lean towards, if they're going to have a really, really extensive setup, they lean towards AES. And AES is an XLR connection. It looks like a XLR connection. Let me clarify that. It isn't a XLR connection, it just looks like it. Just like SPDIF looks like RCA. So what the XLR connection is going to do is allow you a little more stable, a little more flexibility between individual channels. You can actually have XLR and tell it, I just want this XLR to be 1 and I want this XLR to be 2, giving you more multi-tracking and solutions for that. Do I know a difference between them? I don't. I've used them all. I can't say, oh yeah, XLR just does it better. The AES format does it better. But I will say this, that you'll see AES on a lot of bigger setups. You'll see multiple AES on things like that. So it's just another digital format to carry the digital information from one device to the next. Do I know everything about it? No. But I hope and just acknowledge what's going on with everything, and hopefully this helps you guys out. So we'll see ya.